Mad Max Fury Road. Okay, let's get this out of the way first. It is a well-executed action movie. No, man, Mad Max was one of the best action movies of the year. Well, let's check it out. Mad Max Fury Road tells the tale of Max, played by Tom Hardy, who is escaping people who have captured him by helping out Furiosa with her mission to save some women called the Wives. The setup is pretty simple. He gets captured. Nicholas Holt's character Nux uses him as a blood donor, and then when Furiosa gets out, Nux wants to prove his worth to the villain Immortan Joe by going out and getting her, and perhaps going out in a blaze of glory, as some people in this universe are suffering from some kind of disease. Now, the story doesn't really focus on that too much, as it concentrates more on the story of Max and Furiosa and their story arcs. Nicholas Holt's character Nux does play a substantial role to the movie, much larger than I thought, but that doesn't take away from him or whatever that his story is. Once they get out there, it's pretty much a chase film. Okay, so let's move on to some of the positives. The cinematography and the scope of this was very well executed. But all that being said, the thing that stands out in the forefront is the action. I really liked Tom Hardy as Mad Max. And Charlize Theron as Furiosa also was very well done. Both of them were very well interesting characters, and they contributed well to each other's story arcs. I really liked how these three characters came together to trust each other, because this is the apocalypse. Sometimes you have to band together against a common foe, and when you do that, you build trusting relationships. So I liked how concise the story was. You got a sense that there was a real background for most of the characters despite of the straightforward story. Everyone seemed to come from this rich world with a well-defined backstory. Even though we didn't take time to explore that, you just got the impression that it was there. So you have to give props to the director for that. That being said, with the lack of any development towards, especially the villain, Immortan Joe, you kind of ended up with a villain that looked cool, but you didn't really get to know him. I kind of looked at it as not of a bad thing. I kind of looked at him as like the Darth Maul of the Mad Max franchise. He looks evil. He does evil things. You just end up not knowing that much about him beyond the scope of what's going on in the chase. Now, as I said, that's not a bad thing. It sounds like it could be a bad thing. I just don't want people to have it really come off as a negative. That being said, let's talk about some of the negatives. I only want to talk about three things here. The first thing being that I saw this in 3D, and 3D did no favors for this film. And here's why. Because for 3D to be effective, what it does is that it makes you concentrate on one portion of the screen. And when you do that, it takes away from what's going on in the rest of the frame, but by doing that, it makes the 3D effective. So when I see action and I'm concentrating on one scene, I will look off and to see what's going on in the other parts of the frame. And for me, I found that a lot of the matte work in the beginning just was a little subpar. And it didn't translate all that well to the CG work in the chase scenes too, like when you saw bodies fly off the vehicles in explosions. Number two, the story. This story is a very visual film, so if you feel that you need a lot of vocal exposition to understand what's going on, then you may have trouble buying into this setting. Lastly, the acting. Some of the acting from particularly the wives was not all that good. Now it could have been the dialogue, but if it was the dialogue, then it also falls on the director. I just felt like the actresses were just not on that level. But that being said, on the other side of the spectrum, you have Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron giving these knockout performances. So I guess what I want to say is that despite some of the few negatives that this film has, they don't outweigh or even put a dent in all the positives that this movie has. So I tend to rank it fairly high. So talking about the score, let's look at it. Acting and directing and story, I give out of a possible 2 points each. The acting, there were a couple of solid pieces in this, so I gave it a 1.5 out of 2. The directing, it was well shot. The pacing was also fairly well done. I also gave it a 1.5 out of 2. Story was a fairly straightforward action piece. A chase film through a post-apocalyptic desert with, as I said, explosive top-rate action. I also gave it a 1.5 out of 2. The cinematography was really well done. I gave that a full point. The score, I felt, really accented, the action and the pace of it at times. There were memorable themes in it. So for that, I also gave the score a full point. And that brings us to the watchable factor. And the watchable factor, as I said, I saw this already in 3D, and I definitely want to go back and watch it in 2D just to see how well some of those scenes hold up. So that gives us 1.5 so far for the watchable factor. I don't know if I want to own it just yet, so I'll stand by the 1.5 for the watchable factor. Adding all that up, that gives us an 8 out of 10 for Mad Max Fury Road in my movie review. Okay, McBain, what did you think? I thought Mad Max Fury Road is one of the best action movies of the year. It is non-stop, heart-pacing action that is so over the top, but executed so well too. 10 out of 10, baby, yeah! Is everything with you 10 out of 10? Hey, it's my opinion. I can say whatever I want to. Well, that you can do. But it's my channel, so I'm going to stick by my 8 out of 10 for Mad Max. Okay, so if you've liked what you've seen, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe.